Good morning, Hexicans, and those of you just generally interested in crypto. I'm out here in the country. I thought I'd fire up some candles just for fun, having my morning cup of coffee. And the second last video I made, I talked about how in the next video I wanted to talk about reasons why the OA might sell. So that was in December when I wished everyone the Merry Hexmas. And going forward this year, so we had a surprise last year when the origin address, for those of you who don't know the term that I'm using, which is the address that controls a large portion of the Hex network. And they also get a copy of any bonuses that are paid out in the network. So I kind of used the clickbaity title, why the OA is might sell. And it is a serious thing to think about because, as I mentioned, a lot of people were taken by surprise when the OA stakes. So in order to understand the topic, there's something else that everybody needs to be on the same page about to understand the discussion. And it's something like this. So right now, when we look at the market cap of Bitcoin, we count all the Bitcoin that exists, but we know a huge portion of those coins really shouldn't be counted. The actual market cap of Bitcoin, even though it's a vanity metric, should be smaller because Satoshi has never moved his million coins. I shouldn't say never moved. He has done transactions. No transactions after the end of 2010, roughly. And so they're kind of dead. We know there's lots of coins lost. There's probably close to 4 million coins that are lost or will never move or are unable to be moved due to various reasons. So really, when counting the market cap of Bitcoin, it should be smaller. Now, when it comes to Hex, the site I use for coin market cap information or just general information how coins are doing is Coin Paprika. Well, Coin Paprika chooses not to count the origin address. And, it's a little bit of a double standard because they count all of Satoshi's coins. I would say for the most part, it's an accurate way to count the market cap of the Hex ecosystem. Nomics counts all the coins. Now, I'm going to say why I feel it's accurate, because the coins, they don't really seem in play. But on the other hand, Nomics, you could argue from their point of view, well, we know these coins aren't just sitting there as a fake stack of coins to fake a higher market cap. And how do we know this? Because they did stake. So they are actually coins or tokens that are participating in the Hex ecosystem. So, you could make the argument that maybe at first Coin Paprika was correct in not including them, but once we saw they are a participant in the Hex network, these coins should be counted as part of the overall market cap, as Nomics does. However, one way that you could lock that in is hypothetically the OA could take a small amount of coins from each one of those addresses, take a little bit of profit, sell some of them somewhere, and then for sure, then there's no reason not to exclude them. If staking wasn't enough, if there was a small amount sold, then hey, you got to include them all. And I think that's a fair reason. So in that reason, we're including and any market cap calculation disputes by selling some Hex. And also at the same time, why can't the origin address take profit? We don't know who controls those keys. So just like it's assumed that Satoshi mined those first blocks in the Bitcoin network and that he controls those keys, a lot of people, it would be safe to assume that Richard Hart, the founder of Hex, controls the OA. But, that might not necessarily be true. There could be somebody else who holds it, perhaps a lawyer or some third party in case the OA gets hit by a bus. There could be some, legal wishes, a trust or something set up. We don't know. and debating it or whatever doesn't really make anything better. So I just accept that it's there. I accept that it's staked, and I wouldn't be surprised if some of the coins ever moved or sold, because hence this video. It's like, prepare your mind in case one day there is some selling, that there's no panic, right? You don't want to panic. Some people started panicking as soon as the OA was staking, which wasn't necessary. Everything panned out just fine. So we covered accurate market cap reporting. We covered perhaps a little bit of profit taking, which is great. I used to be self-employed. I had a business for 9 years, and at my height I had 9 employees, and it was a good time, and nothing wrong with profit. So that's definitely a motive I understand. Obviously, if the OA was to sell for profit, you would hope, and I'm pretty sure whoever would control those keys is smart enough not to do a dump so deep that it would end the project. Obviously, I'm pretty sure whoever controls those keys is smart enough not to destroy something that in essence they've helped build, right? And if the OA is not Richard Hart, we know they did help to quash any fears of there being an oversupply during the big payday. So whoever the OA is, if it's not Richard Hart, they still help the Hex ecosystem. And I don't see somebody trying to destroy something they helped build. Just my thoughts on human nature. Now, moving forward, what's another reason why the OA could sell? And I think this is a good reason, maybe something that could be done. And it ties into another problem that's currently happening in the Ethereum network, and that is fees. Have you looked at fees recently? It's retarded. Honestly, the fees are so high. Like here in Canada, somebody who's young, because I find that's who's most receptive to talking about Bitcoin or crypto as perhaps an investment or a tiny hedge or getting somebody into it. You talk to young people, they get it. Fortunately, a lot of young people, they earn minimum wage or slightly above, and it's hard to convince somebody to work 3 hours just to pay a fee. I don't know. It's a little bit too much. But here's the awesome part about being part of the Hex ecosystem is Hexicans so far have a track record of being first to things. There's been a lot of firsts, right? First to use Uniswap, some of the first to use zksync.io. And again, what does this have to do with the OA selling? Well, I'll explain. So we know we as a community can do our part to help limit congestion on the ETH ecosystem till ETH 2.0 is fully implemented. And how can we do that? Well, we can use rollups, either optimistic rollups or ZK rollups. Or there's even Ethereum sidechains that are EVM compatible. For example, you probably know that I'm a big fan of xDAI. In fact, I was pretty happy recently, prior to all these price increases, I had moved a lot of my coins that I still do a little bit of trading with to the sister chain xDAI. And there, you could still do 500 transactions per penny. Not a problem. Oh, well, what about Uniswap? Well, they have a clone there called HoneySwap, and there's liquidity pools, and you can buy, sell, and trade and do whatever you want and have no concern about fees. You want to onboard a new user? No problem. They have ways that with your bank card or credit card, you can go to the xDAI chain and buy their native token, which is xDAI. So you can kind of eliminate that middle volatility for somebody who's new. Let's say you're meeting somebody and they only have 500 bucks that they want to put in. Well, they can get 500 USD, or they can ease in at 100 bucks a week or whatever they have into crypto, and it's stable, and they can buy Hex. The transaction fees are so cheap, you could buy $1 of Hex every day, and some people do. I checked the HoneySwap statistics, and there are people buying it like 50 cents at a time. I don't know why. So I had created that liquidity pool a few months back. I decided to grow Hex, to move it onto a second chain, created the liquidity pool, which was easy enough, and other people started using it. I think I might have put like $30 in there just to create it as an experiment. I put it out on Twitter. Well, now there's like $3,000 of liquidity there. So going back to our first subject is the OA could help create liquidity in other areas that would move smaller amounts of trading to other places. For example, zksync.io, which in essence they would have to sell to do this. So for example, let's say the OA sent some Hex to the xDAI sister chain. They could slowly, over time, sell a little bit in to HoneySwap, get the DAI, and then after doing that, you can add it as liquidity, right? So you could sell 10,000 Hex, and then you would get DAI back, and then you could stake it, not stake it, you could add it to the liquidity pool with the DAI that you've gotten. So, you know, that's one thing that could be done. And why do I think the OA could do this or might do this? Well, let's be honest. The xDAI chain, no matter how much of a fan I am, you have to understand it depends on external parties, right? So same thing with any of the layer 2 scaling solutions, you know, whether it be optimistic rollups. So in the case of xDAI, while you're dependent upon the bridge, if the bridge ever went down that moved assets back and forth, then you're kind of hooped, right? Now you got Hex stuck on another chain, which, you know, whatever, it's there. But you need that bridge because once you've accumulated enough Hex on the xDAI chain, you eventually want to send it back to the Ethereum chain where you can do your staking. And so that's important. So you do, the OA has a huge portion of Hex. And if they were to set the trend and move some liquidity here or there, you know, in small amounts, right? Like obviously you don't want like millions of dollars of excess liquidity in places where it's not needed and nobody's using it. You know, all this is granted. I'm talking micro amounts here. Then it becomes a place where you could onboard new users or people who just want to trade a little bit or get comfortable with it could go, you know, they could go to the xDAI fountain, get their free penny, and then they could do 500 transactions playing around with it. It's a good place to learn. If you lost your keys and, you know, you use the xDAI fountain and, you know, you had 50 Hex on there, whatever, you know, you're not going to cry. It's a good sandbox to make your mistakes. And then once you've accumulated and you've played and you've done what you want to do, then you can transfer it over back to Ethereum. And the same is true with a lot of these, at the moment, scale 2 solutions. The only way people will go there is if there's some liquidity there. And again, you don't need infinite amounts of liquidity. And you don't want to trust too much third-party software. So Hex is built on Ethereum. We know Ethereum's going to be around for the long haul. There's a good way we can gauge the minimum length of time that the Ethereum network will be around. And it goes like this. I forget, you know, there's all these laws like, you know, Murphy's Law and this law and that law. So there is one for the length that a service or product that's used by people will be around. And it kind of goes like this, like if something's been around for 1 year, it's safe to assume it will be around for another year. If it's been around for 5 years, it'll probably, the trend, that's it, it's for gauging trends. It will be around for another 5 years, is safe to say. So the longer and bigger the trend becomes, the longer it takes for the trend to disappear. So Ethereum's, you know, been around for, I don't know, what is it, like 6, 7 years, it's safe to assume it will for sure be around for another 6 or 7 years. Same thing with Bitcoin. It's been around for 12 years. Well, for sure, the trend will continue for another 12. And that's just minimums, right? I'm not saying, I don't want anybody to jump to any rash conclusions and say in 6, 7 years, we'll all be using some other network like Polkadot or something. But just overall, if you want to measure trends, that's a helpful gauge for your minimum. So we have the Ethereum network, and we have Hex contract. And the only problem with the scaling solutions is that you're reliant on third parties. Same thing, Uniswap's even a third party. Like, you lock liquidity in there, you're trusting that Uniswap's going to keep working. And honestly, seeing all these things that are going on with fees and the congestion in the ETH blockchain, and we know Uniswap version 3 is coming out, and we know that going forward, eventually, Uniswap is going to, and it's going to try to include optimistic rollups or ZK rollups or some kind of scaling solution in there. I'm pretty sure currently, too, even using 0x is slightly cheaper fee-wise. There are 0x solutions to the high fees for trading and acquiring other cryptos on Ethereum. And so there is this risk that if you transfer too much liquidity to something, that thing becomes outdated. So for example, I was talking big about xDAI, right? Like, I think it's a great interim solution, but that's the key word, interim. In a few years, is anybody going to be using it? I have no idea. Once ETH 2.0 comes out, that use case for xDAI, that sidechain, it may not be there. So we always want to be careful where we lock up too much stuff. And, I wouldn't permanently lock a whole bunch of stuff in Uniswap version 2 or, any weird thing, because in a few years, for sure, it's just going to be unusable, right? Everybody's going to be using some sort of scaling solution. I've been keeping eyes on Connext and Raiden. You could end up with a future version of Uniswap that just uses Raiden, that holds all the liquidity in some addresses that are on the Raiden network. And when you buy and sell, you basically have no fees, and it just uses state channels to accomplish the trades. We don't know what's coming. There's all kinds of solutions out there. But, the whole point of this video was to talk about a couple reasons why the OA might one day sell, or, show some sales. And I think, I've covered the ones that I think that could be very likely. Again, just proof of keys type scenario for the market cap, some profit taking, or perhaps helping and providing liquidity into areas where it would overall help the Hex and Ethereum ecosystem in terms of helping with new scaling solutions, right? To have that first mover advantage into helping with something new. So anyways, I'm going to end the video here. Merlot Mama, the missus, this morning, she did a little time lapse of the sunrise. So I'm going to end the video with that and get another cup of coffee and wish you all a good morning.